The Miami port gleamed under the June sunlight, its waters shimmering like silver reflecting the blazing rays from a cloudless sky. Ship horns echoed, mingling with the cheerful chatter of hundreds of passengers gathered at the dock, eagerly awaiting board the luxurious cruise ship Celestial Odyssey. The air was filled with the scent of sea salt and excitement, as if everyone there carried a dream, a hope for days of lavish rest ahead. But for Amara Jackson, a 30-year-old Black American single mother, this moment wasn't just the start of a vacation. It was a desperate attempt to soothe the emptiness in the hearts of her 7-year-old twin sons, Isaiah and Elijah. Amara stood among the bustling crowd, one hand gripping the 3 wrinkled boarding passes creased from being checked too many times, while the other held onto Isaiah's wrist as he bounced with excitement. His large brown eyes lit up as he pointed to the massive white ship anchored in the distance. "Mom, look. It's as big as a city!" Isaiah squealed, his high-pitched voice, drawing glances from nearby passengers. Quieter than his brother Elijah stood close to his mother, clutching his favorite stuffed whale in one hand, his mouth slightly agape in awe as he stared at the ship. Amara smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Her natural curls were pulled back into a neat bun, revealing a delicate but weary face, with faint dark circles under her eyes, the traces of sleepless nights, working overtime, and days filled with unending worry. She had spent the past year saving every penny for this trip, cutting every unnecessary expense from skipping coffee dates with friends to buying second-hand clothes. Whenever she checked her dwindling bank balance, she wondered if she was making the right choice. But whenever Isaiah and Elijah talked about their adventure at sea with eager voices, whenever their eyes sparkled as she described the ship's water slides and dessert buffets, she knew she couldn't back out. This trip wasn't just a vacation. It was a promise to her children, a gesture to make up for the questions she couldn't answer, questions about the father they had never met. "Mom, where is our dad?" Isaiah had once asked over cheap pasta during dinner. Amara had smiled and changed the subject, though her heart clenched. She didn't want to lie, but the truth that the man she once loved had disappeared from her life 8 years ago was too painful to share. Amara checked her phone quickly, glancing at the banking app. The balance showed only a few dozen dollars, just enough to cover minor extra costs aboard the ship. Anxiety rose in her chest, but she locked the screen, tucked the phone into her purse, and bent down to smooth Elijah's hair. "Ready, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Elijah nodded, clutching his whale tighter, still staring at the ship as if it were a portal to a magical world. Isaiah tugged her hand impatiently. "Let's go, Mom. I want to see the water slide." Amara chuckled softly, letting her children lead her toward the slow-moving line at the boarding gate. The announcement for departure echoed over the loudspeakers, and she felt a small flicker of hope rise within her. Maybe she could give her children beautiful memories just for a few days, enough to make them forget the questions she couldn't answer. Not far away, a sleek black Rolls-Royce Phantom glided to a stop at the port's edge, drawing everyone's attention. The car door opened, and out stepped Ethan Caldwell, a 33-year-old white American tech billionaire, exuding cold confidence. His blonde hair gleamed under the sun, neatly combed, and his bespoke navy suit hugged his tall, athletic frame. His deep blue eyes were hidden behind expensive sunglasses, but his sharp gaze missed nothing around him. Ethan founded Next Gen Solutions, a world-leading tech company known for artificial intelligence and enterprise software innovations. He wasn't here to relax, but to finalize a multi-billion-dollar deal with international partners, a contract that could elevate his company to new heights and cement his status in the tech world. His assistant, a young woman named Clara, hurried behind him, holding a tablet and speaking rapidly. "Sir, the schedule has been updated. The first meeting is tonight, but the conference room has a slight issue. I'm contacting the ship staff to confirm." Ethan nodded, but his mind was elsewhere, focused on numbers, strategies, and contract clauses. Make sure everything is perfect, Clara, he said, his voice deep and commanding, revealing no emotion. He removed his sunglasses, revealing piercing eyes, and stepped into the VIP check-in lane where port staff greeted him with respectful bows. A few nearby passengers whispered and pointed. That's Ethan Caldwell, right? Heard he's negotiating a major deal. Ethan ignored them, walking with long, confident strides, as if the world were nothing more than a chessboard, and he the master player. Amara, busy keeping Isaiah from darting off, paid no attention to the Rolls-Royce, or the man who stepped out of it. She was answering Elijah's question. Mom, does the ship have a big swimming pool? She nodded, patting his head. It's huge. You'll love it, Isaiah said. I want to go down the slide first. Amara smiled, though her eyes were tinged with sadness. She wondered if her children would ever understand her sacrifices, or if they would only remember these joyful moments. She didn't blame them. That's what she wanted for them to grow up with, beautiful memories, untouched by the hardships she had endured. Meanwhile, Ethan passed through the VIP checkpoint, unaware of the woman and two boys standing just meters away in the standard boarding line. He paused briefly, feeling a cool sea breeze blow past, carrying the scent of salt and a rare sense of freedom he seldom experienced. For a fleeting moment, he wondered if he was missing something in life, something beyond deals and fame. But he quickly pushed the thought away, refocusing on his mission. Clara. The meeting room must have a large screen and stable internet, he ordered firmly. Clara nodded, taking notes on her tablet, and the two disappeared into a private walkway leading to the ship. Amara and her sons finally reached the check-in counter. A middle-aged woman with a friendly smile checked their tickets and handed Amara 3 boarding cards. Welcome aboard the Celestial Odyssey, Ms. Jackson, she said. Your cabin is on deck 5, room 512. We hope you and the boys have a wonderful trip. Amara thanked her, took Isaiah and Elijah's hands, and led them across the gangway onto the ship. The boys gasped in awe as they entered the central atrium, with its gleaming marble floor and a giant chandelier hanging like a constellation. Mom, is this a castle? Elijah asked, wide-eyed. Amara laughed. Almost, sweetheart. Meanwhile, Ethan was already in his suite on the top deck, a spacious room with a private balcony overlooking the ocean. He stood by the window, hands in his pockets, watching the passengers still boarding. Clara continued her report. Mr. Caldwell, I've confirmed the conference room, but there are some minor changes to the schedule. I'll email the full update shortly. Ethan nodded, though his gaze drifted lost, as if searching for something in the deep blue sea. He didn't know that just a few decks below, the woman who once meant the world to him was guiding 2 little boys. Children he didn't even know existed onto a journey that would change all 4 of their lives. Amara led Isaiah and Elijah to cabin 512, a small but cozy room, with 2 bunk beds and a round window looking out to sea. The boys rushed in, jumping onto the beds, arguing playfully over who got the top bunk. Mom, I want the top, Isaiah declared, climbing up. Hugging his whale, Elijah chose the bottom bunk, whispering, I like it here close to you. Amara smiled and began unpacking their clothes. But a sudden memory swept over her as she pulled out Elijah's little sweater. 8 years ago, she and Ethan had sat in a tiny Atlanta apartment, dreaming of a future together. With his radiant smile and ambitious eyes, he talked about building a tech company that would change the world. She, an eager journalism student, believed they could overcome anything. But then he got a job offer in Silicon Valley, an opportunity of a lifetime. He promised to come back and to call every day. But after a few brief calls, he vanished, leaving her with a broken heart and 2 babies on the way. Amara shook her head, banishing the memory. She didn't want to think about Ethan. She didn't want that pain to cast a shadow over this trip. She turned to her boys and clapped her hands. All right, boys, get ready. We're going to check out the water slide. Isaiah and Elijah cheered, jumping off the beds and tugging her along. As the three stepped out of the cabin, Amara felt a sea breeze brush past, carrying a strange premonition, like destiny was whispering that this journey would be far more than a vacation. The Celestial Odyssey glided smoothly across the deep blue sea, the afternoon sunlight pouring through large windows and illuminating the marble-tiled hallway to the cabins. The steady hum of the ship's engines mixed with the cheerful chatter of passengers, creating a symphony of luxury and freedom. Amara Jackson, her curly hair tied up high, led her 7-year-old twin sons Isaiah and Elijah through the door of cabin 512, their home for the next few days. The small but cozy room had 2 bunk beds draped in ocean blue linens, a small wooden table, and a round window looking out onto the sparkling sea. Isaiah rushed in first, leaping onto the top bunk and shouting, "Mom, I got this spot. It's so high up." Elijah, clutching his stuffed whale tightly, moved more slowly, choosing the bottom bunk and whispering, "I like it here, closer to you." Amara smiled, her heart warmed by her children's innocence, though her eyes revealed a flicker of sorrow, as if a painful memory was waiting silently in the corners of her mind. She set her handbag on the table, opened the suitcase, and unpacked their clothes neatly. Every tiny t-shirt, every pair of socks folded with care, was proof of the months she had worked tirelessly. Morning shifts at a cafe, and night shifts, doing online data entry. She had sacrificed much, but watching Isaiah and Elijah laugh and argue over who would sleep by the window made every effort worthwhile. "Mom, does the ship have chocolate cake?" Isaiah asked, his eyes glowing. Amara nodded, smoothing his hair. "Yes, but only after you eat your veggies." "Okay." Elijah, sitting on the bed, looked up. "Tell us a story about the ship." Amara chuckled softly, sat beside him, and began telling them about the Celestial Odyssey, as if it were a floating castle with huge swimming pools, winding water slides, and starlit parties. The boys listened intently, their eyes sparkling like they were entering a fairy tale world. But as she pulled out a small sweater belonging to Elijah, a memory suddenly surged back sharp and painful like a fresh wound. 8 years ago, in their tiny Atlanta apartment, she and Ethan Caldwell had sat hand in hand on a worn-out sofa, dreaming of a shared future. With his blonde hair and dazzling smile, Ethan spoke passionately about building a tech company that would change the world. She, an idealistic journalism student, believed their love could overcome anything. When he received the job offer from Silicon Valley, an opportunity he couldn't refuse, she supported him, even as her heart grew heavy. "I'll come back, Amara," he promised, holding her tightly on their last night together. "I'll call you daily and build everything together." But after a few brief calls, his voice grew distant, and then he disappeared completely. Amara found out she was pregnant soon after, and the pain of being abandoned made her feel as if her entire world had collapsed. She cried every night wondering what she had done wrong, but eventually she stood back up, determined to be the best mother she could be for Isaiah and Elijah. Amara shook her head, brushing the memory away. She didn't want that old pain to shadow this trip, didn't want Ethan, even as a ghost from the past, to steal the joy from her children. She stood up and clapped her hands. "All right, boys, let's explore the ship. Let's go find the water slide." Isaiah cheered, jumping down from the bed and grabbing her hand. Elijah, more reserved, got up too, hugging his whale as he followed. As the three stepped into the corridor, sunlight streamed through the windows, highlighting the boys' radiant smiles. Amara held their hands, feeling a tiny flicker of hope. Perhaps this trip could be a new beginning, a chance for her and her sons to forget the questions without answers. At the same time, on the ship's highest deck, Ethan Caldwell entered his luxurious suite, a spacious room with a private balcony overlooking the ocean. The polished walnut floors, sleek modern furnishings, and an abstract painting on the wall all exuded wealth and power. Ethan removed his blazer, tossed it onto the leather chair, and stood by the window, his hands in his pockets, staring at the glistening sea. His assistant Clara stood near the door, mumbling about the schedule. "Sir, the meeting room has been confirmed, but there was a small mix-up with the room number. I'm coordinating with the ship's staff to fix it. The meeting tonight starts at 8 p.m. Ethan nodded, but his gaze was distant, his mind elsewhere. "Make sure there are no mistakes, Clara," he said, his voice deep and firm. "This deal cannot fail." Ethan founded NextGen Solutions, a billion-dollar tech company, famous for its breakthroughs in artificial intelligence. The deal he was negotiating on this ship with Asian partners could expand his empire globally. But even standing at the peak of success, Ethan always felt an inexplicable void, an unease he usually silenced by throwing himself into work. He stepped onto the balcony, letting the cool sea breeze wash over him. For a rare moment, he wondered if something was missing in his life. A memory of Amara flickered her radiant smile, her warm voice reading articles aloud to him. But he quickly pushed it away. That's the past, he told himself, turning back inside and picking up his phone to check emails from the partners. Clara continued her report. "Mr. Caldwell, I've also scheduled a call with the technical team at 6 p.m. to ensure the presentation system works flawlessly." Ethan nodded, irritation flickering as he thought about the confusion in the earlier room. "No more mistakes, Clara," he said sharply. Clara nodded and left to handle the arrangements, leaving Ethan alone. He sat at the desk and opened his laptop, but his eyes drifted back to the sea. A vague sense of unease crept in, as if this ship wasn't just a place for sealing a deal, but where fate awaited. Meanwhile, Amara led Isaiah and Elijah to the ship's deck, where a massive swimming pool shimmered under the sun, and a winding water slide coiled like a green dragon. Isaiah shouted in excitement, running toward the railing. "Mom, I want to go down right now." Holding his mother's hand, Elijah stared at the slide with curiosity and hesitation. Amara laughed, pulling Isaiah back. "Wait, sweetheart. We'll swim later for now. Take it in." She led the boys to a corner of the deck with lounge chairs and a panoramic ocean view. The boys gasped in amazement, pointing toward the horizon, where the sun began turning gold. Amara sat down, checking her phone, worried about the cost of any onboard activities. She reminded herself to be careful, but watching Isaiah and Elijah laugh eased her heart. A few meters away, Ethan stepped onto the deck, phone to his ear, discussing contract terms with a partner. "We need to ensure intellectual property rights are fully protected," he said firmly. He didn't notice Amara and the boys near the railing laughing as Isaiah pretended to be the ship's captain. Amara, busy calming Elijah's fear of the slide's height, didn't see Ethan walk past either. A nearby passenger whispered to a friend, "That's Ethan Caldwell, the tech mogul. I heard he's here to sign a billion-dollar deal." Amara didn't hear, but a breeze swept past her, carrying a strange premonition, as if destiny was setting up a meeting she wasn't ready for. Isaiah tugged at her hand. "Mom, let's go check out the buffet." "I'm hungry." Amara smiled, stood up and led her sons toward the main restaurant. Ethan ended his call as they walked away, pausing by the railing and looking out to sea. Another passenger walked by, whispering, "Caldwell's here. Wonder what secrets he's carrying." Ethan ignored it, but his gaze turned momentarily vacant. He had no idea that just a few steps away, the woman he once loved and the two children he never knew existed had just passed by, carrying a story that would upend his life. Amara and her sons entered the restaurant, where the rich aroma of seafood and pastries filled the air. Isaiah and Elijah eagerly chose their dishes, while Amara reminded them to eat their vegetables first. She overheard a conversation nearby. That tech billionaire is here. Must be for some big deal. She ignored it and focused on her boys, though a part of her wondered if life would ever stop reminding her of what she had lost. When she led her sons back to their cabin after dinner, she glanced out the window and saw the sea glittering beneath the sunset. She told herself this trip was for the boys, but deep down, she knew she was also searching for peace. Sunset draped the Celestial Odyssey in a brilliant orange glow, painting the sky and shimmering across the deep blue sea. The first lights began to illuminate the deck, casting a warm ambiance over the pool and outdoor dining area, where passengers gathered to enjoy dinner under the stars. Soft jazz music floated from a live band near the bar, mingling with the cheerful conversations and the gentle lapping of waves against the hull. Amara Jackson's curly hair, tied high to reveal her delicate features, led her 7-year-old twin sons, Isaiah and Elijah, into the main buffet, where the air was rich with the scent of grilled seafood, freshly baked bread, and sweet pastries. Isaiah's eyes sparkled as he pointed at the fried chicken tray. "Mom, I want that one." Elijah, clutching his stuffed whale, looked shyly at the tray of vegetables with curious eyes. Amara smiled, placing a hand on their shoulders. "All right, but vegetables first, then chicken." "Okay." She helped them select their food gently, stopping Isaiah from grabbing too many chocolate desserts, and guided them to a small table by the window where the golden light of sunset created a cozy scene. Isaiah bounced in his seat, talking excitedly about the water slide he had seen on the deck. "Mom, it's tall. I want to go down tomorrow." Elijah, sitting next to her, nodded. "But I want to swim in the pool first." Amara laughed, brushing Elijah's hair. "We'll do both, sweetheart." But though her smile was gentle, her eyes grew distant, like her mind had wandered into the memories she tried so hard to bury. This trip was for her children, she reminded herself. But every peaceful moment brought back reminders of the days she had fought alone, raising Isaiah and Elijah without the father they should have had. As Amara cut Elijah's chicken, she overheard a conversation from the following table. A middle-aged woman in gold-rimmed glasses whispered to her friend, "Did you hear Ethan Caldwell? The tech tycoon is on this ship. I heard he's here to sign a billion-dollar deal." Her friend's eyes lit up. "Really? I saw him in the main lobby this morning, so cold but incredibly magnetic." Amara froze slightly, her heart skipping a beat. Ethan's name made her shiver, but she told herself it was a coincidence. Maybe it was someone else with the same name. She brushed it off, focusing on her sons, but deep down, she couldn't help but think of her Ethan Caldwell, the man with sandy blonde hair, a radiant smile, and promises that had vanished like smoke. 8 years ago, in a small Atlanta apartment, Amara and Ethan had lain together in bed, the streetlights outside casting soft lines across his face. He spoke of his dream to build next-gen solutions, a tech company that would change how the world worked. Aspiring to be a journalist, she listened intently, believing they would conquer everything together. But everything changed when he received the job offer in Silicon Valley. "This is a big opportunity, Amara," he said, eyes shining with ambition. "I'll come back and we'll start again." She had held him tightly, trying not to cry, believing their love was strong enough to survive the distance. But after a few brief phone calls, his voice grew colder, and then he stopped calling altogether. Amara found out she was pregnant a few weeks later, and the pain of being abandoned tore her heart apart. She had called him and left voicemails, but never got a reply. In the end, she decided to raise Isaiah and Elijah alone, vowing never to let them feel the kind of hurt she had endured. Amara shook her head, pushing the memory away. She didn't want to think about Ethan. She didn't want the past to steal the joy of this moment. She looked at Isaiah and Elijah eagerly eating and smiled. "Slow down, boys, or you'll choke." Isaiah laughed, dropping a fry, which made Elijah burst into giggles. Amara's heart felt lighter, but a strange sense of unease still crept in, as if this ship held a secret she wasn't ready to face. At that exact moment, Ethan Caldwell sat at a secluded table in another corner of the buffet, eyes glued to his tablet, as graphs and numbers danced on the screen. His assistant Clara stood nearby, muttering about the evening schedule. "Sir, I've confirmed the meeting room for tonight. Everything is ready, but the tech team needs your approval on some details before 7 p.m. Ethan nodded, his gaze icy, and focused on an email from an Asian partner requesting added security terms. "Send them the revised contract by 6. He ordered, his voice deep and commanding. Clara nodded, jotted down notes quickly, and left to handle the task. Ethan stood, picked up his tray, and walked to the buffet for more food. He wore a crisp white shirt and navy slacks, sleeves rolled up to reveal toned forearms. His presence caught the eyes of several passengers, some of whom whispered as he passed, "That's Ethan Caldwell, right? I heard he's a billionaire." Ethan ignored them. His mind was occupied with negotiation strategies. But as he approached the fried chicken station, he nearly collided with Isaiah, who was toddling by with a plate full of fries. Right behind her son, Amara quickly pulled him back, her heart skipping. "Careful, baby," she said. Ethan muttered, "Excuse me," without looking up, and walked away. Amara exhaled, unaware she had just brushed past the man who broke her heart 8 years ago. Ethan returned to his table, took a sip of black coffee, and felt a vague unease, like something important had just passed him unnoticed. He gazed out the window, where the sea sparkled beneath the sunset. A memory of Amara flashed, her glowing smile, the way she held his hand during their Miami beach walks. He pushed it aside, telling himself the past was over and there was no time for sentiment. But deep down, he knew he had never truly forgotten her, no matter how hard he tried to bury that longing with work and success. After finishing dinner, Amara helped her sons back to the cabin. She bathed Isaiah and Elijah and told them about a brave little whale surviving a storm. The boys listened, their eyes growing heavy, and Amara kissed their foreheads before turning off the light. She sat by the window staring at the sea, her mind adrift. She remembered their last night together, Ethan holding her, promising to call daily. The pain of abandonment still lingered, making her wonder if she'd ever truly forgiven him. She stood, drew the curtain shut, and reminded herself this trip was for her children, not a time to drown in the past. Meanwhile, Ethan returned to his suite, standing on the balcony, the unease still clinging to him. A message from Clara came in. "The meeting room is ready, sir. I'll meet you at 7. He nodded, though his eyes drifted to the ocean, where moonlight had just begun to glimmer. A passenger passed by and whispered to a friend, "Caldwell's on board. His deal is supposed to shake up the entire tech industry." Ethan didn't hear it, but he felt a sea breeze sweep past him, carrying a strange sensation, like fate was whispering that his life would change forever. Amara rechecked her phone back in the cabin, worrying about onboard expenses. She locked the screen, lay on the bed, and listened to Isaiah and Elijah's peaceful breathing. She told herself everything would be fine, that this trip would bring her children joy. But as she closed her eyes, Ethan's face with that dazzling smile and burning ambition appeared again in her mind. She shook her head and whispered, "No, that's the past." But deep down, she knew this ship wasn't just a place to rest. It was where past and present were about to collide. Night descended over the Celestial Odyssey, and moonlight filtered through the round portal windows, casting faint silvery streaks across the glossy wooden hallway floors. The steady hum of the ship's engine mingled with distant music from a party on the deck, creating a peaceful and mysterious atmosphere. Inside cabin 512, Amara Jackson, lay on the bottom bunk next to Elijah, listening to the steady breathing of her 7-year-old twin sons, Isaiah and Elijah. Curled up on the top bunk, Isaiah clutched his pillow, dreaming of the water slide, while Elijah, holding his stuffed whale, tightly slept soundly with a soft smile. Amara, her curly hair spilling over her pillow, stared out the round window where the ocean shimmered under the moonlight. She had bathed and read stories to her sons, trying to let their innocence soothe the worries in her heart. But the memory of Ethan Caldwell, the man who had left her 8 years ago, still haunted her like a ghost. She closed her eyes, trying to push Ethan's image away, but the memories surged back vivid and painful. 8 years ago, in their tiny Atlanta apartment, she and Ethan sat by candlelight at the dinner table, talking about the future. With his sandy blonde hair and ambitious eyes, he spoke of next-gen solutions, the tech company he dreamed of building. She, a journalism student, believed their love could overcome any obstacle. But when he accepted a job offer in Silicon Valley, everything changed. "I'll come back, Amara," he had promised, holding her tight on their last night together. "Just a few months, and we'll start again." She believed him. But after a few brief calls, he disappeared. When she discovered she was pregnant, she called him and left messages, but never got a reply. The pain of abandonment tore through her, but she stood back up, determined to become the best mother she could be for Isaiah and Elijah. Amara sighed and pulled the blanket higher, trying to sleep. She told herself this trip was for her sons, not for her to drown in the past. But a strange feeling continued to stir inside her, like the ship was leading her to a crossroads she wasn't yet ready to face. At that exact moment, on the ship's highest deck, Ethan Caldwell stepped out of his luxurious suite, holding a small piece of paper with a room number scribbled on it. The dim hallway lights cast a glow on his face, highlighting his deep blue eyes and sharp features. Wearing a rolled-up white dress shirt and navy slacks, he exuded the composed authority of a tech billionaire. Clara, his assistant, had confirmed via text that tonight's meeting with the Asian partners would take place in room 512, a VIP cabin temporarily converted into a meeting room. Ethan checked his watch, 10 p.m., and walked briskly down the hallway, his mind preoccupied with contract terms. This billion-dollar deal could elevate next-gen solutions to new heights, and he wouldn't allow any missteps. He stopped outside cabin 512, double-checking the room number on the paper. Taking a deep breath, he knocked lightly. No answer. Assuming the partners were already inside, he turned the handle and gently pushed the door open. The room was dim, lit only by the moonlight streaming through the round window. Ethan stepped inside, but immediately sensed something was wrong. Instead of a meeting table and projection screen, he saw a pair of children's shoes near the door, toys scattered across the floor, and 2 bunk beds with ocean blue blankets. He frowned in confusion. Clara must have given him the wrong room. Before he could turn to leave, a figure bolted upright on the lower bunk, eyes wide in the moonlight. Amara Jackson, in an old t-shirt and tousled curls, stared at the man standing in her cabin doorway. Her heart pounded, her breath caught in her throat as she recognized that face. The blonde hair, the deep blue eyes, the sharp lines of a man she had once loved, who now only brought her pain. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling, as if she couldn't trust what she saw. Ethan froze, his feet rooted to the floor. "Amara," he stammered, his voice suddenly hoarse. He hadn't expected to see her not here after 8 years. Before he could say anything more, Amara jumped from the bed, stepping protectively before Elijah, who stirred from his sleep. Isaiah also opened his eyes from the top bunk, curiously watching the stranger. "Get out!" Amara hissed under her breath, voice low, but seething with anger, her hand trembling as she pointed to the door. "You have no right to be here." Ethan raised his hands in an attempt to calm her. "Amara, I'm sorry. I must have walked into the wrong room." I thought this was the meeting cabin. But his eyes involuntarily lingered on the two boys. Isaiah, with his curly hair and brown eyes, stared at him with curiosity. Still holding his stuffed whale, Elijah sat up slowly, his eyes timid but sharp. Ethan's chest tightened. The boys looked just like he had at their age. The eyes, the facial structure, even the way Isaiah tilted his head in wonder. A terrifying thought struck him. Could they be his children? Amara, noticing Ethan's gaze, grew even more furious. She stepped forward, shoved him into the hallway, and shut the cabin door behind her to shield the boys from hearing. Under the dim corridor light, she faced him, eyes red with emotion, her voice trembling. You have no right to be here, Ethan. You disappeared for 8 years and left me with... She stopped, choking back tears, unwilling to say more in front of him. Ethan, reeling, searched for words. Amara, I didn't know. I didn't know you were here. I'm just here for a meeting. But those boys... His voice faltered, his eyes full of confusion. Are they... Amara laughed bitterly, tears streaming down her cheeks. Don't pretend, Ethan. You didn't care. You never cared. You left me when I needed you most, and now you dare ask about my children. She emphasized the word my, as if to deny him any connection to Isaiah and Elijah. Ethan shook his head, his hands trembling. I didn't know you were pregnant, Amara. I swear I didn't know. If I had... But Amara cut him off, her voice like ice. If you had, what would you have done? Come back and play the perfect dad. Don't lie, Ethan. You chose money and your career and left me alone with 2 babies. Ethan opened his mouth to explain, but found no words. He remembered those days in Silicon Valley, being consumed by work, endless meetings, and the pressure of building next-gen. He had meant to call Amara and return, but every day he told himself she'd understand, and that he needed time. By the time he realized he had lost her, it was too late. Looking into her eyes now, seeing the pain etched deep within them, guilt surged like a tidal wave. Amara. I was wrong, he said, voice raw. I don't know what to say, but I never meant to hurt you. Amara wiped her tears and shook her head. Don't say anything, Ethan. Just go. Leave me and my children alone. She turned to open the door, but Ethan grabbed her hand, eyes pleading. Amara, please. Let me talk. I need to understand what happened. Amara yanked her hand away, her eyes blazing. Understand. Do you want to understand? I called you Ethan. I left messages telling you I was pregnant, but you never answered. I raised Isaiah and Elijah alone, working 2 jobs, staying up all night while you built your billion-dollar empire. That's what happened. Ethan staggered back as if struck. He didn't remember those messages, but he realized now he had changed numbers when he moved to California and had gotten so caught up in work that he never checked his old voicemail. He wanted to say he hadn't received them and was wrong, but the words lodged in his throat. Before he could respond, a security officer appeared at the end of the hallway, his eyes cautious. Is everything all right, ma'am? The man asked, glancing from Amara to Ethan. Amara took a deep breath, steadying herself. It's fine. This man just entered the wrong room. Ethan nodded, his voice low. Yes, it was my mistake. The officer looked at them both for a moment, then nodded. Please keep it quiet. Other families are resting. He walked away, but his glance lingered suspiciously. Amara turned to Ethan, her voice quiet, but firm. Don't ever come near me or my children again, Ethan. I don't need you. And neither do they. She opened the door, stepped inside, and slammed it shut behind her, leaving Ethan alone in the hallway. Ethan stared at the closed door, his mind spinning. The images of Isaiah and Elijah, those brown eyes identical to his, the curly hair, the innocent smiles haunted him. He wondered if they were truly his children, and what he had missed in the last 8 years. He leaned against the wall, his hands shaking, guilt and confusion flooding him. He wanted to knock to tell Amara he would make things right, but he knew she wouldn't listen. He turned and strolled back to his suite, each step weighed down with a lifetime of regret. Inside the cabin, Amara sat on the bed, burying her face in her hands, stifling her sobs so the boys wouldn't wake. From the top bunk, Isaiah whispered, "Mom, who was that man?" Amara took a deep breath, wiped her tears and forced a weak smile. "Just someone who came to the wrong room, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." But as she looked at Isaiah and Elijah, their faces resembling Ethan's so heartbreakingly, she knew the past had found her, and she couldn't run from it forever. Dawn broke over the Celestial Odyssey as the first rays of sunlight slipped through wispy clouds and lit the deep blue sea like a giant mirror. The gentle sound of waves lapping against the ship blended with the morning announcements from yoga classes on the deck to breakfast buffet hours at the main dining hall. In cabin 512, Amara Jackson awoke with a lingering sense of unease, as though the memory of last night's encounter with Ethan Caldwell still clung to her. She lay on the bottom bunk next to Elijah, staring at the ceiling, where the dim morning light streamed through the round window. On the top bunk, Isaiah was still fast asleep, hugging his pillow, while Elijah stirred and mumbled in his sleep, "Mommy." The wail. Amara smiled faintly, gently, brushing her son's hair, but her heart was heavy. The confrontation with Ethan, his stunned eyes and trembling voice as he asked about Isaiah and Elijah, reopened a wound she thought had long healed. She sat up, trying to shake the memory of the night before, but the image of Ethan standing in the cabin doorway, those deep blue eyes filled with confusion, still haunted her. She didn't want to believe his words that he hadn't known she was pregnant, that he hadn't meant to abandon her, but a small part of her wondered if it could be true. She shook her head, reminding herself that Ethan wasn't worth her thoughts. He had chosen a career and wealth and left her with 2 children. She got up, pulled on a t-shirt and jeans, and tied her curly hair into a neat bun. She needed to stay calm for Isaiah and Elijah. This trip was for her sons, not for her to confront the past. She gently woke her boys. "Time to get up, my loves. Today, we're going to have a yummy breakfast." Isaiah sat up instantly, his eyes glowing. "Mom, will there be pancakes?" Elijah, slower to rise, hugged his stuffed whale and nodded. "I want fruit." Amara laughed and helped them get dressed, though a shadow of worry flickered in her eyes. She checked her phone and saw her bank balance was still near zero. She reminded herself to be cautious with expenses. As the 3 of them stepped out into the sunlit hallway, Amara held her children's hands, trying to remain composed. But an odd feeling still clung to her, as if this ship had become a stage for secrets waiting to be exposed. At the same time, in the luxury suite on the top deck, Ethan Caldwell sat at a walnut desk, staring at his laptop screen. But his mind was elsewhere. He hadn't slept since the encounter with Amara. The image of Isaiah and Elijah, with their curly hair and brown eyes identical to his as a child, wouldn't leave his mind. He remembered Amara's voice shaking with fury. "I called you Ethan. I left messages saying I was pregnant, but you never replied." Those words cut like a blade, making him question whether he had truly missed those messages. When he moved to Silicon Valley, he had changed his phone number and had been so consumed with work that he never checked his old voicemail. But whatever the reason, he knew now that he had failed, and guilt gnawed at him. His phone buzzed, dragging him back to reality. A message from Clara, his assistant, "Sir, I've emailed your updated schedule, but there's an issue rumors about you are spreading online." Ethan frowned and opened Twitter on his laptop. A post from a popular entertainment account had gone viral. Tech billionaire Ethan Caldwell has a secret family. Shocking photos from the Celestial Odyssey attached was a blurry photo taken from a distance showing Amara holding Isaiah and Elijah's hands on the ship's deck. Their faces weren't visible, but the caption read, "These two boys look just like a young Caldwell. Is this a family scandal at sea?" Ethan felt heat rush to his head. He scrolled through the comments. Does Caldwell have a secret family? Who's the mother of those kids? This is the drama of the year. He slammed the laptop shut, fists clenched. He didn't care about rumors about himself, but the thought of Amara and the boys, if they genuinely were his, being dragged into a media firestorm, enraged him. He remembered Amara 8 years ago, her dream of becoming a journalist, and her radiant smile as she read her articles to him. How strong she must have been to raise 2 children on her own. He stood and stepped out onto the balcony, looking out at the sea, trying to steady himself. An email arrived from the Asian partners, asking them to clarify the rumors to prevent an impact on the billion-dollar deal. Ethan closed his eyes. He knew he had to find Amara, apologize, and learn the truth. Meanwhile, Amara led Isaiah and Elijah into the breakfast buffet, where the smell of pancakes and fresh coffee filled the air. She helped her sons get their food, gently stopping Isaiah from piling chocolate pastries on his plate, and guided them to a quiet corner table away from the crowd. But as she sat down, she noticed a few nearby passengers glancing her way. A couple whispered while looking at Isaiah and Elijah, then stared at Amara curiously. Amara stiffened, trying to ignore it, until a young woman holding a phone secretly took a picture. Amara shot up from her seat, voice low but firm. "Please don't take photos of my children." The woman flinched and mumbled an apology, but her eyes still brimmed with curiosity. Isaiah, sensing the tension, tugged his mother's arm. "Mom, why are they looking at us like that?" Amara gave a strained smile and stroked his hair. "They're just curious, sweetheart. Eat your breakfast." But her heart pounded. Fear surged inside her. She knew the rumors about Ethan were spreading. She had overheard passengers talking about the tech billionaire last night, but she hadn't expected it to affect her children. She quickly gathered Isaiah and Elijah and left the buffet, deciding to find a quieter place. But as they entered the hallway, she saw a small group of passengers pointing and whispering, "Is that Caldwell's baby mama?" The kids looked just like him. Amara tightened her grip on her son's hands and led them to a secluded bench near the pool area where fewer people passed. She sat down, trying to remain calm, but her hands trembled. She pulled out her phone and called her best friend Keisha, the one person who had always been her anchor. When Keisha answered, her voice was cheerful. "Hey girl, living the luxury cruise life?" Amara choked out. "Keisha, everything's a mess. Ethan's here, and people look at us like we're zoo animals." She told Keisha about last night's encounter, the rumors, and her fear that the children were getting caught in a media storm. Keisha listened, then said gently, "Amara, you're stronger than anyone I know. If Ethan's there, face him. You can't run forever. And if the rumors spread, protect your boys like you always do." Amara nodded, though Keisha couldn't see her, and wiped away a tear. "I just wanted this to be a happy trip for them, not this." Keisha reassured her, "You'll make it through. You're the mother of Isaiah and Elijah. No one can take that from you." After the call ended, Amara looked over at her boys, who were pretending to be pirates near the railing. She told herself she had to be strong, but the fear lingered. She didn't want her sons to know about Ethan, not yet. She wasn't ready for their questions. Back in the suite, Ethan received a call from Clara. Sir, the partners just emailed again. They're worried about the rumors online. They want clarification before this afternoon's meeting. Ethan gripped his phone tightly, his voice firm. Tell them I'll handle it, but I need to see Amara first. Clara hesitated. Are you sure, sir? The rumors are spreading fast, and the onboard press might already be looking for her? Ethan closed his eyes. The image of Amara's fury from last night flashed before him. He knew she wouldn't want to see him, but he couldn't let her and the children face this storm alone. Meanwhile, Amara led her sons back to their cabin, determined to avoid the crowds. She unlocked her phone and opened Twitter, and there it was. The viral post about Ethan's secret children. The grainy photo of her and the boys made her feel exposed, like she had been stripped bare before the world. She locked her phone and wrapped her arms around her son. I'll protect you, she whispered always. But as she looked out the window at the shimmering sea, she knew the media storm had only just begun, and that Ethan, whether she wanted it or not, was now part of it. As dusk settled over the Celestial Odyssey, golden-orange sunlight streamed through the ship's large windows, casting a warm glow across the deck. The pool area buzzed with children's laughter and the rhythm of a reggae band playing near the bar. But to Amara Jackson, it felt like the weight of the world rested on her shoulders. She stood near the railing, eyes fixed on Isaiah and Elijah, her 7-year-old twin sons who were playing near the edge of the shallow pool. His curly hair tousled. Isaiah pretended to be a pirate shouting, "Attack!" Elijah clutched his stuffed whale, giggling as he dodged his brother's playful strikes. Amara smiled, but it was strained, hiding the anxiety gnawing at her. After last night's encounter with Ethan Caldwell and the media storm this morning, the ship no longer felt like a vacation, but a trap of curious eyes and exposed secrets. Her curls tied into a tidy bun, Amara wore a blue t-shirt and shorts, trying to maintain calm for the boys. But her heart clenched every time she heard passengers nearby whisper, "Is that Caldwell's baby mama?" The viral Twitter post about Ethan's secret children, featuring the blurry photo of her and the boys, still haunted her. She had tried to avoid crowds, but there was nowhere truly safe on a crowded ship. She looked at Isaiah and Elijah, their faces bearing painful resemblances to Ethan, and wondered whether she could truly shield them from this storm. She didn't want them to know about Ethan, not yet. She wasn't ready for the questions. Not far away, Ethan Caldwell stepped onto the deck, phone pressed to his ear, his deep voice tense. Wearing a rolled-up white dress shirt and navy trousers, his blonde hair gleamed under the sun. "I understand," he said to his Asian business partner, concerned about the spreading rumors. "But we need to delay the announcement until I settle this. I'll clarify things, but not the way you want." He ended the call, slipped the phone into his pocket, and gazed toward the pool, his sharp eyes laced with unease. After last night, when Amara had thrown him out of the cabin with fierce words, he couldn't stop thinking about her, or the two boys, Isaiah and Elijah, who might be his sons. He needed to speak with her, apologize, and find out the truth, even if forgiveness wouldn't come easily. His eyes swept across the deck, and then he saw her. Standing by the railing, Amara is a portrait of strength and vulnerability. His heart pounded. He drew in a breath and strode toward her, determined to face her, even if the conversation would be easy. As he neared, Amara looked up, her gaze meeting his, and she froze. That familiar posture, the deep blue eyes, the sharp lines of his face, the confident stance dragged her back to a time when she still believed their love was forever. But then came the memories of crying alone, of working 2 jobs to raise Isaiah and Elijah, and anger flared like fire. "Amara," Ethan said urgently, stopping a few steps away. "We need to talk." Amara turned away, her eyes blazing, her voice low and sharp. Talk about what, Ethan? That you left me to chase wealth. That you didn't know I was pregnant. Even though I tried to contact you, I have nothing to say to you. She glanced at Isaiah and Elijah to ensure they were still playing and out of earshot. Ethan raised his hand slightly, trying to stay calm. Amara, please just hear me out. I didn't know you were pregnant. I was wrong to lose contact. But if I had known about Isaiah and Elijah, Amara cut him off, her voice bitter. What? You'd come back and play the perfect dad. Don't lie, Ethan. You chose your career. Next-gen solutions and left me to raise 2 children. My children don't need you, and neither do I. Her voice trembled, but she stood tall like a wall between Ethan and her sons. Ethan shook his head, his expression pained. I'm not pretending, Amara. I know I was wrong, but I want to make it right. Those boys, are they my sons? The question hit like a knife. Amara was stunned. She wanted to scream no, that Isaiah and Elijah were hers alone, but the resemblance was undeniable. She took a deep breath, her voice cold. You have no right to ask that, Ethan. You lost that right when you disappeared. Ethan stepped forward, his voice pleading. Amara, I'm not trying to take anything from you. I want the truth. And if they are my sons, I want to do the right thing. Before he could finish, Isaiah came running over, eyes wide with curiosity. Mom, who's this? He asked innocently. Amara stiffened quickly, pulling him into her arms. She shot Ethan a warning look, then turned to her son, her voice gentle. Just someone Mommy knows, sweetheart. Go back and play with Elijah. But Isaiah tilted his head and looked at Ethan. Why does he know my name? Amara froze. Her heart pounded in her chest. She didn't want Isaiah asking questions, and she didn't want him to be curious about Ethan. But the boy's innocent gaze made her hesitate. Was keeping Ethan away really the best thing, or was she robbing them of a father? Ethan knelt, his voice soft. I heard your mom say your name. You're Isaiah, right? Isaiah nodded and smiled brightly, then turned to his mother. Mom, is he staying? Can he swim with us? Amara's throat tightened. She wanted to shout no, that Ethan wasn't staying, but she didn't want to break Isaiah's heart. She forced a faint smile. He's swamped, baby. Play with Elijah. I'll be there soon. Isaiah nodded and ran back, but his curious gaze lingered. Amara turned to Ethan, her voice low and full of restrained fury. Don't do that, Ethan. Could you not make them curious about you? They don't need you, and I don't want them hoping for something that will never happen. Ethan shook his head, eyes earnest. Amara, I don't want to hurt them. I want a chance to make things right. I don't deserve it, but if Isaiah and Elijah are my sons, I want to be a part of their lives. Amara let out a dry laugh, tears slipping down her cheeks. Apart. Can you show up after 8 years and be a father? You have no idea what I've gone through, Ethan. You don't know how many nights I cried, how hard I worked so they could have a good life. You have no right to ask for anything. Ethan bowed his head, guilt washing over him. He wanted to say he'd do anything to make it up to her, but he knew words wouldn't be enough. Before he could respond, his phone vibrated. His Asian partner's name flashed on the screen. He glanced at it, then shoved the phone back into his pocket, refusing to answer. But Amara noticed, and her laugh was sharp with bitterness. See, work still comes first. Go, Ethan. Sign your billion-dollar contract, and leave us alone. She turned and walked back toward her sons. But Ethan called after her. Amara, please. I'm not giving up. Not this time. Amara paused, but didn't turn around. She reached for Isaiah and Elijah's hands and led them back to their cabin, her heart pounding. Isaiah's question, why does he know my name, echoed in her mind, stirring doubts. Could she keep this secret forever? She looked at her sons, their bright smiles, and silently vowed to protect them, even if it meant confronting Ethan or running from him. Back in the suite, Ethan sank into a chair, holding his head in his hands, his mind spinning. He opened his phone and saw a message from the partners Caldwell clean up the scandal, or the deal's dead. He threw the phone onto the table, the image of Isaiah and Elijah flashing before his eyes. He knew he must see Amara again, to convince her he had changed. But deep down, he wondered if he truly deserved that chance, after all he had done. The sky over the Celestial Odyssey turned pale gray as thick clouds covered the morning sun. The waves slapped harder against the ship's sides, blending with the announcement over the loudspeakers that the vessel would soon dock at its next port. In cabin 512, Amara Jackson stood by the round window, staring anxiously at the sea, her hand gripping her phone. She hadn't slept since yesterday's tense confrontation with Ethan Caldwell on the deck, when he had pleaded for a chance to make things right. Isaiah's innocent question. Why does he know my name still echoed in her mind? With her curls tied back neatly, Amara wore a simple blue t-shirt and jeans, trying to push Ethan's image from her thoughts. But anger and fear clung to her. She didn't want Ethan in Isaiah and Elijah's lives. She didn't want her sons to hope for a father who might disappear again. On the lower bunk, Isaiah and Elijah, her 7-year-old twin sons, played with toy cars. Isaiah, grinning wide, pushed a toy truck through a tunnel made of blankets, while Elijah, hugging his stuffed whale, carefully lined up the rest. "Mom, can we go swimming today?" Isaiah asked, eyes shining. Amara turned, forcing a smile. "We'll see, sweetheart. Maybe this afternoon if the weather gets better." But deep down, she didn't want to go outside. She didn't want to face the curious stares of other passengers, or risk running into Ethan again. The viral Twitter post about Ethan's secret children, with the blurry photo of her and the boys, made her feel hunted. She had already decided they would disembark at the next port. She hoped to escape the media storm and Ethan, even if it meant cutting short the vacation she had spent all year saving for. Amara checked their suitcase, making sure everything was packed. Then she called out, "All right, boys, put on your jackets. We're going to the disembarkation area early." Isaiah leaped down eagerly. "Mom, will the port be fun?" Elijah, more reserved, held her hand. "I want to bring Whale with me." Amara nodded, patting his head, though her eyes were clouded with worry. Holding their hands, she led them into the hallway, where dim yellow lights cast a sleepy glow. As they neared the disembarkation area, a cold breeze swept through, as if warning that something wasn't right. The line to leave the ship moved slowly, with passengers queuing to present their documents. Amara kept her grip firm on the twins' hands, holding them close. Then suddenly, Elijah stopped. He clutched his head, his face pale. "Mom!" "It hurts," he whispered weakly. Amara dropped to her knees, panic flaring in her chest. She touched his forehead. It was burning. Before she could say anything, Elijah vomited on the hallway floor. "Baby, it's okay. Mommy's here," Amara cried, holding him tightly. Isaiah stood nearby, terrified. "Mom, what's wrong with Elijah?" Amara scooped Elijah into her arms and ran toward the medical center just a few doors away. She knocked frantically. "Please, my son needs help." A middle-aged doctor with a calm smile opened the door and ushered them in. "Take a deep breath, Ms. Jackson. Lay the boy down. We'll check him now." Amara laid Elijah on the exam bed, gently brushing his hair from his sweaty forehead. He groaned, eyes shut, arms still wrapped around his stuffed whale. Isaiah clutched her hand. "He'll be okay, right, Mom?" Amara nodded, but inside, she felt crushed. She blamed herself. Was it the stress? The tension with Ethan? The media frenzy? The doctor checked Elijah's temperature and heart rate, then turned to Amara. He's running a high fever. It could be stress-related or a minor viral infection, he said. We'll run a blood test to be sure, but he needs rest and monitoring for the next few hours. Amara nodded, wrapping her arms around Elijah. Mom's right here, baby. Everything's going to be okay. But when she looked at his pale face, she felt helpless. She had wanted to leave the ship, to escape everything. But now Elijah's health came first. Meanwhile, Ethan Caldwell sat in his sweet eyes on his laptop, but mind far away. He hadn't slept since the confrontation with Amara. Isaiah's question, "Why does he know my name?" had shattered any denial he still clung to. He couldn't ignore the possibility that the twins were his. His phone buzzed with a message from his assistant. Clara, sir. The partners demand an emergency meeting at 10 a.m. They want you to deny the rumors publicly. Ethan gripped his phone in frustration. He didn't care about the billion-dollar contract anymore. He needed to see Amara again, to apologize, to know the truth about Isaiah and Elijah. Just then, a call from a ship employee interrupted him. Mr. Caldwell, there's been a situation in the medical bay. A child, Elijah Jackson, is being treated. His mother, Amara Jackson, seems very distressed. We thought you should know because Ethan didn't wait for the rest. I'm coming, he said, already on his feet. He rushed down the hallway, his mind racing with images of Amara and the boys. If Elijah was sick, he had to be there whether Amara wanted him. When he arrived at the medical bay, he saw Amara seated by Elijah's bedside, her hand tightly clutching her son's. Isaiah stood nearby, eyes red, tugging on his mother's sleeve. Amara looked up and saw Ethan. Her expression darkened. She opened her mouth to tell him to leave, but Elijah stirred, drawing her attention back. Ethan stepped inside, his voice low and worried. Amara, what happened? Is Elijah okay? Amara inhaled sharply, trying to stay calm. He's running a high fever. The doctor's checking him. You don't need to be here, Ethan. But Ethan didn't leave. He stood by the door watching Elijah, his pale face, tiny body, the resemblance that nearly broke Ethan's heart. He turned to Isaiah and smiled gently. You okay, buddy? Your brother's going to be fine. Isaiah nodded, though his eyes remained curious. Who are you? Do you know my brother? Amara froze. But Ethan answered gently. I'm a friend of your mom's. Just here to help. Isaiah nodded, though his gaze didn't leave Ethan's face, as if sensing something deeper. The doctor returned with the results. Ms. Jackson, it's a mild virus. It could be triggered by stress or environmental change. He needs rest fluids and monitoring. If the fever doesn't drop, we'll provide medication. Amara exhaled in relief, hugging Elijah. Thank you, doctor. She glanced at Ethan, eyes still guarded, but didn't ask him to leave. His presence, though unwelcome, brought a strange comfort, like she wasn't completely alone at that moment. Ethan pulled a chair near the bed, watching Elijah, then turned to Isaiah. Want me to tell you a story? I know one about a robot. Isaiah's eyes lit up. A real robot? Ethan smiled and began describing a robot he once built in Silicon Valley, adding silly sounds that made Isaiah giggle. Even Elijah, though weak, smiled faintly. Amara watched Ethan, hearing the tenderness in his voice. Her heart wavered. She remembered the man she once dreamed of, the man she loved. But then she recalled the nights she cried alone, and reminded herself not to trust so easily. The doctor returned to recheck Elijah. He's stabilizing, but we recommend keeping him here a few more hours. Amara nodded, brushing her son's hair. Mom's right here, sweetheart. Ethan rose, resting a hand on Isaiah's shoulder. You're the big brother, huh? Look after your brother, okay? Isaiah nodded proudly. Ethan turned to Amara, voice soft. I'll be nearby. If you need anything. Amara didn't respond, but her eyes softened slightly, as if his sincerity had touched something fragile within her. When Ethan left the medical bay, he leaned against the hallway wall, his hands trembling. The image of Elijah sick and vulnerable, and Isaiah's curious stare overwhelmed him. He checked his phone. A message from Clara. The partners are waiting. They need a response about the rumors. Ethan replied, "Cancel the meeting. I'm busy." He knew he was risking everything, even a billion-dollar deal. But the family felt more important than anything else for the first time, no matter how uncertain. Inside the medical bay, Amara cradled her sons humming a lullaby. She looked down at Elijah now resting peacefully and felt a moment of calm. But as she thought about Ethan, the unexpected gentleness in him, she wondered, should she give him a chance? Or was it safer to keep protecting her boys from the man who once shattered her heart? The sun rose over the Celestial Odyssey, filtering through thin clouds and casting a soft golden light onto the shimmering sea. The gentle lapping of waves against the ship's hull blended with the distant cries of seagulls, creating a peaceful atmosphere after hours of tension. Inside cabin 512, Amara Jackson sat beside the lower bunk bed, brushing Elijah's hair. Her 7-year-old son, who had just recovered from a fever the night before. Elijah, clutching his stuffed whale, looked brighter now, his brown eyes lighting up as he whispered, "Mom, I want pancakes." From the upper bunk, Isaiah leaped down enthusiastically. "I want chocolate on mine." Amara smiled, relieved to see them return to their usual innocence, though her heart still felt heavy. Ethan Caldwell's unexpected appearance in the medical room the previous night, with his gentle voice and robot story that made the boys laugh, had shaken her, though she didn't want to admit it. Amara, with her curly hair tied back and wearing a white t-shirt and jeans, got up to help the boys get dressed. She tried to push away the image of Ethan, the sincerity in his eyes, the way he knelt to speak with Isaiah. But the memory of raising her sons alone for years kept her wary. She didn't want Ethan in Isaiah and Elijah's lives, and she didn't want them to form a bond with someone who might vanish again. But Isaiah's curious question yesterday, "How do you know my name?" and his excitement during Ethan's story, made her wonder if she was robbing them of the chance to have a father. She shook her head, telling herself Ethan couldn't be trusted, not after what he did 8 years ago. "All right, boys, let's get some breakfast," Amara said gently. Isaiah cheered, grabbing her hand, while Elijah took the other, his whale swinging along. As the three stepped into the hallway, sunlight pouring through the windows illuminated the boys' radiant smiles. Amara led them to a small restaurant on the 7th floor, quieter than the main buffet, hoping to avoid curious glances from other passengers. But when she entered, she saw Ethan standing near the food counter, his navy blue shirt sleeves rolled up, blonde hair glowing under the lights. Her heart pounded, but she tightened her grip on the boy's hands, ready to turn around. Isaiah, with his mischievous eyes, spotted Ethan first. "Mom, that's the man who told the robot story." He ran over, tugging Ethan's arm. "You're here. Are you having pancakes too?" Amara froze, wanting to pull Isaiah back, but his excited expression stopped her. Ethan turned surprised, then smiled warmly. "Hey there, Isaiah. I was just about to grab some pancakes." "What kind do you want?" "There's chocolate." Elijah, more reserved, stepped closer and said, "I like strawberries." Ethan nodded, eyes soft. "Strawberry perfect. I'll get that for you." Amara stood stiffly between pulling the boys away and letting them enjoy this moment. She stepped forward, voice low. "Ethan, you don't have to do this. We can manage on our own." Ethan looked at her, his eyes sincere. "Amara, I just want to help. They look hungry and I want to be here even if only for a moment." Amara was about to say no, but Isaiah said, "Mom let him eat with us. He tells entertaining stories." Elijah nodded shyly, eyes curious. Amara took a deep breath and reluctantly agreed. Fine, just breakfast. The four sat at a corner table by the window overlooking the sea. Ethan helped the boys get their pancakes chocolate for Isaiah, strawberry for Elijah, then made a funny face mimicking a robot. Pancakes, recharging energy for astronauts. Isaiah and Elijah. The boys giggled and Elijah laughed softly, forgetting the fever from the night before. Amara watched them, noticing how naturally Ethan interacted with the children, and her heart twisted. She remembered the days back in Atlanta, when she and Ethan had dreamed of a family. But then came memories of sleepless nights working overtime, raising the twins alone. Doubts crept back in. As Ethan cut Elijah's pancakes, his phone buzzed on the table. The screen showed a call from his Asian partner. Amara glanced at it and said coldly, "Work's calling, Ethan. Still your #1 priority, huh?" Ethan looked at her, then turned off the phone and pushed it aside. "No, Amara. Isaiah and Elijah are my priority. I'm here for them today." Amara blinked, surprised he would do that. But she didn't believe his words. She remembered his broken promises and told herself this was a fleeting moment. After breakfast, Amara took the boys to the deck, where sunlight bathed the pool area. Isaiah and Elijah excitedly watched seagulls glide across the sky, pointing and laughing. Ethan followed at a distance, but when Isaiah asked, "How do seagulls fly for so long?" he knelt and explained. "They have special wings like airplanes to save energy. Want to learn how to spot different birds?" Isaiah nodded, eyes bright. Ethan showed him how to look at wing shapes, his voice calm, and Elijah soon joined in curiously. Amara stood a few steps away, arms crossed, watching Ethan and the boys. She saw Isaiah laughing freely, Elijah more open, and a part of her wanted to believe Ethan had changed. But then Isaiah turned to Ethan, his voice innocent. "You know so many things. Why weren't you with Mommy before?" The question hit like a knife. Both Amara and Ethan froze. Amara rushed forward, pulling Isaiah back. "That's enough, sweetheart. Let's go see the pool." But Isaiah's curious gaze unsettled her. She looked at Ethan, eyes warning, then led the boys away, her heart racing. Ethan stood there, Isaiah's question echoing in his mind. He wanted to explain, to admit he had failed, but he knew Amara wouldn't listen. He checked his phone and saw an email from his partner Caldwell. "The rumors are hurting our image. Deny them now, or we're pulling out." He clenched his phone tightly, but the thought of Isaiah and Elijah made him even more determined. He followed Amara at a distance, knowing he'd have to be patient to earn her trust back. Back in the cabin, Amara sat on the bed, hugging her sons, trying to shake off Isaiah's question. She looked out the window at the sparkling sea and wondered if she could keep Ethan out of their lives, or if she needed to face him for Isaiah and Elijah's sake. The midday sun blazed down on the Celestial Odyssey, its bright rays reflecting off the ocean's surface, casting sparkling streaks of light like diamonds. The soft sound of waves lapping against the ship blended with passengers' laughter. But inside cabin 512, the atmosphere was heavy and suffocating. Amara Jackson sat on the bed, clutching her phone tightly, her eyes locked on the screen, displaying a news article that had just gone viral on social media. The bold red headline screamed, "Tech Billionaire, Ethan Caldwell, has secret children. Family scandal unfolds on the Celestial Odyssey." Attached was a long-distance paparazzi photo of Amara holding hands with Isaiah and Elijah on the ship's deck with a caption, "The two boys look just like a young Caldwell. Who is the mysterious mother?" Amara felt her breath catch, as if the whole world had just invaded the private life she had fought to protect for herself and her children. Wearing a white t-shirt and jeans, her curly hair pulled back neatly, Amara put the phone down, her hands trembling. She looked at Isaiah and Elijah, her 7-year-old twin sons playing on the floor with toy cars. Isaiah, beaming, pushed a toy truck along a highway made from a blanket, while Elijah, holding his stuffed whale, lined up his cars in neat rows. Their innocence made her heart ache. She had done everything to shield them from prying eyes from rumors about Ethan. But this article, now with thousands of shares and cruel comments, had shattered everything. She blamed herself. If only she hadn't boarded this cruise. If only she hadn't let Ethan into their lives again. Maybe she wouldn't be facing this nightmare. She stood up and walked to the round window overlooking the sea, trying to collect herself. Memories of Ethan that morning, having breakfast with the boys, doing robot voices that made them laugh, turning off his phone when a business call came in, swirled through her mind, unsettling her. She wanted to believe he had changed, but Isaiah's innocent question, "Why weren't you with Mom before?" and the lonely years raising the boys alone made it impossible. She shook her head and whispered, "No, I can't let him in." But as she looked back at her sons, seeing Ethan's features reflected in their faces, she wondered if she could keep the secret forever. Amara took the boys to the pool deck, hoping the cheerful atmosphere would ease her anxiety. She helped them into their swimsuits, reminding them, "Stay close to Mommy. No running off. Okay?" Isaiah nodded, eyes bright. "I'm gonna swim super fast." Elijah, more timid, held her hand. "I want you to watch me, Mommy." Amara smiled and led them up to the deck. But the moment they stepped into the area, she noticed the stares. A couple whispered, glancing at Isaiah and Elijah, then turned to Amara with a knowing smile. A middle-aged man, phone in hand, suddenly shouted, "Hey, isn't that Caldwell's baby mama? Those kids look just like him." Amara froze, pulling the boys close, her voice trembling. "Please don't say that. Leave us alone." Isaiah overheard and looked up. "Mommy, what are they saying?" "Who's Caldwell?" Amara felt her throat tighten. She knelt and stroked his hair. "It's just a misunderstanding, baby. Don't worry. Go play." But Isaiah's curious eyes pierced her. She took them to a quieter corner of the pool, but the feeling of being watched lingered. Taking out her phone, she called her best friend Keisha, her voice breaking. "Keisha, I can't take it anymore. People are taking pictures and writing stories about us. I wanted the boys to have fun, but now they're being dragged into this." Keisha comforted her. "Amara, you're stronger than this. Don't let the crowd control you. If Ethan's the problem, confront him. You can't keep running." Amara nodded, wiping her tears, but fear still gripped her. She looked at her boys playing, but Isaiah's curious gaze haunted her. She didn't want them to know about Ethan, not yet. Not the man she had tried so hard to keep from their lives. She stood to take the boys back to the cabin, but as she turned, she saw Ethan near the poolside bar, phone pressed to his ear, looking tense. He wore a rolled-up white dress shirt, his blonde hair catching the sunlight, but his face was drawn and worried. Amara tried to avoid him, but Isaiah ran over, calling Mr. Ethan. "Watch me swim. Okay?" Startled, Amara reached to stop Isaiah, but Ethan had already crouched down, smiling. "Hey, Isaiah, I'll watch, but swim carefully, all right?" He glanced at Amara with an apologetic look and ended the call. "I'll call you back later." Amara stepped forward, voice low. "Ethan, stop. Don't make the boys think you're going to stay." Ethan looked at her, pleading. "Amara, I don't want to hurt them, but I saw the article. The rumors spread fast, and I want to protect you and the boys." Amara laughed bitterly. "Protect us? You're the reason we're caught up in this. If you hadn't shown up, if you hadn't—" She choked, unable to say more in front of the children. Ethan took a deep breath, his voice low. "I know I messed up, but I won't let you face the media alone. I'll hold a press conference. I'll clear things up so they stop chasing you." Amara stared at him, stunned. A press conference? Do you think saying a few words on camera will fix everything? You'll only make it worse. Ethan stepped closer, eyes sincere. I don't want to deny them. If Isaiah and Elijah are my children, I'll claim them even if it costs me my contracts. But I need your consent, Amara. I won't do anything without your permission. Amara looked at him and saw the sincerity, but fear and anger kept her from trusting him. She turned away, grabbing the boys' hands. Let's go, boys. We're going back to the cabin. Isaiah looked back, eyes full of disappointment. You're not coming with us, Mr. Ethan. Ethan gave a sad smile. I'll see you later, Isaiah. Have fun. Amara led them away, her heart pounding. She wanted to believe Ethan, but the memories of raising the boys alone told her otherwise. She hugged them tightly in the cabin and whispered, Mommy will protect you always. But as she looked out the window at the sparkling sea, she knew the media storm had fully erupted, and Ethan, whether she liked it or not, was now a part of it. Ethan sat at the table in his suite, head in hands, his mind spinning. He opened his laptop and saw an email from his business partner Caldwell. Deny the rumor now, or we'll pull out. Your image is being destroyed. He clenched his phone, but the image of Isaiah and Elijah burned in his mind. He called Clara. Schedule a press conference this afternoon. I'm telling the truth. Clara hesitated. Sir, this could ruin the contract. Ethan replied firmly, I don't care. The kids matter more. The afternoon on the Celestial Odyssey carried a heavy atmosphere, as if the entire ship held its breath in anticipation of an impending event. The sunlight gradually faded, casting a warm orange glow through the large windows onto the corridors. Inside cabin 512, Amara Jackson sat on the bed, tightly holding Isaiah and Elijah, her 7-year-old twin sons, who were playing with toy cars. Isaiah, his curly hair tousled, pushed a truck through a blanket tunnel, while Elijah, hugging a stuffed whale, lined up the cars in a row. Their innocence was the only balm for Amara's weary heart, but anxiety clung to her like a ghost. The viral article titled, Tech Billionaire Ethan Caldwell Has Secret Kids, and the curious stares of passengers made her feel as though her life had been stripped bare before the world. Amara, her curly hair tied back, wore a blue t-shirt and jeans, and gazed out the porthole window where the sea shimmered under the sunset. She hadn't forgotten the conversation with Ethan that morning when he suggested holding a press conference to address the rumors. His words, I don't want to deny the children. If Isaiah and Elijah are mine, I'll acknowledge them. This stunned her, but fear and anger still drove her to refuse. She didn't trust him, not after 8 years of abandonment, not after the nights she cried alone, working herself to exhaustion to raise the boys. But the sincerity in his eyes, the way he looked at Isaiah and Elijah, made her waver. She shook her head, telling herself she couldn't let Ethan into their lives. Still, Isaiah's question, who is Caldwell? And his curious eyes made her wonder if she could keep the secret forever. Amara stood up and called her children. Come on, boys, let's go have lunch. I want pizza. Isaiah cheered. I want orange juice. Elijah nodded. Amara smiled, leading them down the corridor, but she avoided the main buffet area where they could be recognized. Instead, she brought them to a small restaurant on deck 5, hoping to find a quiet corner. But as they entered, she heard whispers from a group of passengers. That's her right. The mother of Caldwell's kids. Amara gripped her son's hands, trying to ignore it, but Isaiah looked up and innocently asked, Mom, why do they keep talking about me? Amara knelt, stroking his hair. Don't worry, sweetheart. They're just curious. After lunch, we'll play a game. Okay? Isaiah nodded, though suspicion lingered in his eyes. Meanwhile, in the event room on deck 8, Ethan Caldwell stood behind the door, gripping a sheet of paper with a few lines of notes. dressed in a crisp white shirt and navy trousers, his blonde hair neatly combed. His deep blue eyes were filled with tension. His assistant Clara stood beside him, her voice anxious. "Sir, the reporters have arrived. About 10 of them, plus some curious passengers. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Your partners just emailed. They want you to deny the rumors, or they'll pull out." Ethan took a deep breath and looked at the glittering sea out the window. He thought of Amara, Isaiah, Elijah, and Isaiah's question, "Why weren't you with Mom before?" and his resolve hardened. "I'm sure, Clara," he said firmly. "I won't let Amara and the kids face the media alone, no matter the cost." Ethan stepped onto the small stage, where a podium had been set up, and a crowd of reporters and passengers had gathered. Cameras, flashed microphones were set, and whispers rippled through the room. Standing at the podium, he took a deep breath and looked at the crowd. In the back corner, Amara appeared unexpectedly standing behind a tall passenger. She had taken the boys to the kids' play area, where the ship's staff would watch them, and decided to come not because she wanted to, but because of a painful curiosity. She needed to know what Ethan would say, whether he would deny the children or drag them into the spotlight. Her heart pounded. Her hands clenched, her eyes hidden behind curls. Ethan cleared his throat, his voice low but steady. "Thank you all for coming. I know there have been many rumors about me and 2 boys on this ship. Until now, I haven't said anything because I needed time to understand the truth. But the rumors have become invasive and hurtful to a family that doesn't deserve this." The room fell silent, cameras flashing. Ethan glanced down at his notes, but folded the paper and chose to speak from the heart. "I want to clarify that there is a strong possibility that Isaiah and Elijah are my children. I only recently learned of their existence, and I take full responsibility for past mistakes. I didn't know they existed, but that's no excuse to run away. I apologize to their mother for not being there when she needed me." Standing in the shadows, Amara felt her breath catch. Ethan's confession, public and without hesitation, stunned her. She had expected him to deny it, to protect his billion-dollar deal, but there he was, acknowledging possible fatherhood, regardless of the fallout. A sharp-voiced reporter raised her hand. "Mr. Caldwell, are you doing this to save your contract? Is this just a PR stunt?" Ethan looked her straight in the eye. "No. My contract is secondary. This is about a family I may have lost. Isaiah and Elijah and their mother are my priority." Another reporter shouted, "You abandoned their mother, didn't you? Now that you've been exposed, you're owning up." Ethan lowered his head, pain in his eyes. "I was wrong for losing touch. I didn't know she was pregnant, but that's no excuse. I should have been there, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it right if she lets me." The crowd murmured, and cameras flashed again. Amara felt tears running down her cheeks. She remembered the nights she cried alone in Atlanta, the day she discovered she was pregnant, and the unanswered calls to Ethan. But seeing him now standing before the world owning his mistakes, a small part of her wavered. Ethan raised his head, his eyes scanning the crowd, and then he saw her. Amara hidden in the shadows, her curls partly obscuring her face. Their eyes met, and in that moment, time seemed to stop. Ethan saw the pain, the hurt, and a glimmer of hope in her eyes. He inhaled deeply and continued. "Until the truth is confirmed, I ask for privacy for the children's mother and the 2 boys. They don't deserve to be hunted by the media. I will do everything to protect them, whatever it takes." A reporter asked, "Will you take a DNA test?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, when the time is right. But no matter the result, I won't turn my back on them." Amara turned and left the event room, her heart pounding. She didn't want to stay, didn't want to face Ethan or the crowd. She returned to the play area and hugged her boys tightly, whispering, "I'm here, my loves." Isaiah looked up at her, innocently asking, "Mom, are you crying?" Amara wiped her tears and smiled. "No, sweetheart. Mommy's just tired." But inside, she knew Ethan's confession had changed everything. She was still angry and afraid, but his sincerity and words before the world made her wonder if he genuinely wanted to make amends. Ethan stepped off the stage in the event room, ignoring reporters' questions. He walked out into the hallway, leaning against the wall, his hands trembling. He knew he had just risked a $1 billion contract, but the image of Amara in the shadows, her eyes meeting his, made it feel worth it. He checked his phone. Clara had texted, "Partners are furious. They want a meeting immediately." Ethan replied later, "I need to find Amara." And he walked off, determined to find her, knowing the journey to earn back her trust had only begun. Sunset descended over the Celestial Odyssey, painting the sky a fiery orange that reflected on the sea like shimmering silk. The main deck buzzed with the weekly family event, where lively music from a live band blended with children's laughter and adults' applause. Colorful ribbons danced in the wind, balloons floated above, and carnival booths, from ring toss to face painting, drew in families. Amara Jackson stood near the railing, holding the hands of her 7-year-old twin sons, Isaiah and Elijah. Her eyes scanned the crowd, vigilant yet weary. Isaiah, with his messy, curly hair, pointed at the balloon booth. "Mom, I want the ship one." Hugging his stuffed whale, Elijah said shyly, "I want the whale." Amara smiled, smoothing their hair. "All right, we'll get both." Amara tried to keep calm with her curls tied up high, dressed in a white t-shirt and shorts, but her heart was in turmoil after Ethan Caldwell's press conference earlier that afternoon. His public admission, "There's a strong chance Isaiah and Elijah are my sons," and the sincerity in his eyes when he looked at her in the event room shook her. She was still angry, still afraid. But his honesty, the way he put family before $1 billion deal, made her wonder if he genuinely wanted to make things right. She shook her head, trying to push the thought away. 8 years ago, Ethan left her to raise their sons alone. She couldn't let him walk back into their lives, not when she still wasn't sure if he would stay. Yet Isaiah's question that morning, "Mom, why do they keep talking about me?" and the curiosity in his eyes reminded her she couldn't keep the secret forever. Amara led Isaiah and Elijah to the balloon booth, where a smiling crew member tied 2 balloons, one shaped like a ship for Isaiah, one, a whale for Elijah. The boys squealed in delight, tugging their balloon strings and running around her. Watching them warmed her heart, but the curious glances of nearby passengers made her tense up. A woman whispered to her friend, "That's Caldwell's baby mama, right? Those kids look like him." Amara gripped her son's hands tighter and led them to a quieter corner, but she knew the rumors from the article and Ethan's confession weren't dying down. She reminded herself to stay strong for Isaiah and Elijah, but fear still clung to her. At the same time, Ethan Caldwell stood near the event stage wearing a rolled-up navy blue shirt, his golden blonde hair glowing under the lights. He had just ended a tense call with an Asian business partner, furious about his public confession. "Caldwell, you're destroying your image," they had shouted. "Deny the rumor or we walk." Ethan answered firmly, "I won't deny my family. If you want to pull out, go ahead." He knew he was putting a $1 billion deal at risk, but the image of Amara in that room, the look in her eyes, made it all feel worth it. He scanned the crowd, searching for her, determined to prove he was no longer the man who abandoned her 8 years ago. He spotted Amara near the ring toss booth, holding Isaiah and Elijah's hands. His heart raced. He walked through the crowd, but kept some distance, not wanting to upset her. Isaiah, with his mischievous eyes, spotted him first. "Uncle Ethan, Are you going to play ring toss? Elijah, more reserved, looked at him with curiosity. Amara turned, her gaze darkened, but she didn't pull the boys away. She stood with arms crossed as if battling between refusal and letting the moment happen. Ethan crouched down and smiled at Isaiah. Ring toss, huh? I'm a champion. Want to give it a try? Isaiah nodded eagerly and pulled Ethan to the booth. Ethan helped him hold a ring and coached. Just toss it lightly. Aim for the bottle in the middle. Isaiah threw. The ring missed, but he laughed loudly. Almost. Standing by his mom, Elijah whispered, I want to try too. Amara was surprised Elijah rarely spoke up to strangers. Ethan turned and offered him a ring. Go for it, Elijah. You've got this. Elijah tossed his ring. It clipped a bottle, but fell off, and Ethan clapped. So close. You'll get it next time. The boys giggled with shining eyes, and even though Amara kept a cold expression, her heart softened. She remembered those days in Atlanta, dreaming of a family with Ethan. This moment, him playing with their kids, felt like a stolen dream. Standing a few steps away, Amara watched Ethan with the boys, noting his patience and warmth. But then the memories returned, years of loneliness, nights, working herself to exhaustion, and doubt crept back. She stepped forward and said lowly, Ethan, that's enough. Don't make them think you're going to be here forever. Ethan straightened his eyes, sincere. Amara, I'm not playing games. If you'll let me, I want to be part of their lives. Amara shook her head, her voice trembling. You don't get it, Ethan. I raised them alone. I can't let them hope, only to be abandoned again. Before Ethan could respond, a crew member grabbed a microphone on stage. Everyone get ready for the game prize ceremony. Families come closer to the stage. Isaiah tugged his mom's hand. Mom, let's go see. I want to see who wins. Elijah nodded and took her other hand. Amara reluctantly followed, but she could feel Ethan's gaze as if waiting to say more. She led the boys toward the stage where families gathered and applauded as staff handed out medals to game winners. Ethan stood behind them, his heart heavy. He knew he needed to do something to show her he was serious. When a crew member invited parents on stage to say a few words, Ethan raised his hand. Can I say something? The crew member nodded and handed him the mic. Amara tensed, eyes locked on him, unsure of what he was about to do. Ethan stepped on stage, looking out at the crowd, but his eyes searched for Amara. He took a deep breath and said clearly, Thank you everyone for the amazing energy of this event. I especially want to thank two boys, Isaiah and Elijah, and their mother, for allowing me to learn to be part of a family. The crowd murmured, and some clapped. Ethan continued, his voice unsteady. I missed 8 years because of my own mistakes. I wasn't there when the woman I loved needed me when my sons grew up. But I'm here now and want to spend my life making up for it. He looked straight at Amara, eyes full of emotion. Amara, Isaiah, Elijah, I want to be your family if you give me the chance. Isaiah and Elijah cheered and ran onto the stage, hugging Ethan's legs. The crowd erupted in applause. Some wiped away tears. Amara stood still, tears streaming down her cheeks, her heart overwhelmed. She stepped onto the stage, holding her son's hands, looking at Ethan. The crowd fell silent, waiting. Amara whispered, her voice choked. I'm scared, Ethan. I'm scared you'll leave again. But I want to try for the boys. Ethan dropped to one knee, taking her hand, his eyes glistening. I swear, Amara, I'm not going anywhere. Isaiah hugged his mother. Elijah clung to Ethan, and the crowd applauded again, some crying. Though Amara still held fear, she felt a glimmer of hope, as if she were stepping into a new chapter, imperfect but real. Dawn broke over the Celestial Odyssey, with the early sunlight piercing through thin clouds, illuminating the ocean like a shimmering mirror. The soft sound of waves lapping against the ship blended with the distant cries of seagulls, creating a peaceful atmosphere, as if the boat was welcoming a new beginning. Amara Jackson stood by the railing on the deck, holding the hands of her 7-year-old twin sons, Isaiah and Elijah. Her eyes scanned the horizon, where the sky and sea melted into one. Isaiah, with his tousled curls, pointed toward a pod of dolphins leaping over the waves. "Mom, look. They're playing." Elijah, clutching his stuffed whale, smiled shyly. "They look like my whale." Amara gently brushed her son's hair, smiling. Her heart felt lighter after days of tension, but a faint worry still lingered. Amara, her curly hair tied high, wore a light blue t-shirt and shorts. She felt the fresh sea breeze brush against her skin, carrying the scent of salt and hope. Last night, during the family event, Ethan Caldwell had made a public promise to build a family with her and the boys standing before a crowd. His voice trembling but sincere. "Amara, Isaiah, Elijah, I want to be your family." That confession, and the moment Isaiah and Elijah ran up to hug him, had broken her down. She had whispered, her voice trembling, "I'm afraid, but I want to try for the boys." That moment when she held Ethan's hand and their sons embraced them felt like a dream, but also a leap into the unknown, where she had to face the fear of being abandoned again. Amara looked at her sons, their beaming smiles, and wondered if she had made the right choice. 8 years ago, Ethan had walked away from her, leaving her to raise Isaiah and Elijah alone through nights of tears and days of exhausting work. She had built walls around her heart, vowing to shield her children from any more pain. But these past few days, from their unexpected encounter in the cabin, to Ethan's tenderness in the infirmary, to his public confession at the press conference, had chipped away at those walls. She still had doubts and felt fear, but his sincere gaze, the way he prioritized the boys over a billion-dollar deal, made her want to believe that he had changed. Ethan stepped up behind her, wearing a rolled-up white shirt, his blonde hair glowing under the sun, his deep blue eyes looking at her with gentleness and determination. He stopped a few steps away and reached out gently, holding her hand, as if afraid to startle her. "Amara," he said, his voice low, "thank you for giving me a chance." Amara turned to him, her eyes passing over his face before settling on Isaiah and Elijah, who were running around the deck pulling their balloon strings. She took a deep breath. "Ethan, I'm still scared. I don't know if I can fully trust you. But the boys, they like you, and I don't want to take that away from them." Ethan nodded, his gaze unwavering. "I understand, Amara. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away. I'm just asking for a chance to prove I won't walk away again." He pulled out his phone, opened a message from his assistant Clara, and handed it to Amara. "Read this." Amara looked at the screen. The message read, "The partners agreed to proceed. They were impressed by your sincerity during the press conference." She looked up, stunned. They didn't back out. Ethan gave a faint smile. "No. But even if they had, I wouldn't have cared. The contract doesn't matter more than you, or Isaiah and Elijah." Tears welled in Amara's eyes, but she wiped them away quickly, not wanting the boys to see. She looked at Ethan and saw the change in him, not the cold billionaire who once prioritized his career, but a man willing to sacrifice for family. She whispered, "I don't know what the future holds, Ethan, but I want to try for the boys, and maybe for myself." Ethan held her hand gently, his eyes misty. "I'll do everything to be worthy of that, Amara. I promise." Isaiah ran up and tugged Ethan's hand. "Uncle Ethan, come see the dolphins with us." Elijah, slower and more reserved, stood next to his mom and looked up at Ethan. "Will you tell us the whale story again?" Ethan laughed, knelt and looked at both boys. Of course. But first I have a question. Do you want me to stay with you and your mom forever? Isaiah nodded enthusiastically. Yes. Elijah, quieter, whispered. You won't leave us again, right? Ethan glanced at Amara, then turned to Elijah and said firmly, I will try never to leave again, Elijah. I promise. Amara hugged her sons tightly, her heart finally feeling lighter, like the burden of the past 8 years was beginning to lift. She held Ethan's hand for the first time in years, and she didn't feel alone for once. Together they stood by the railing watching the dolphins leap as the morning sun lit their faces. Amara told her sons a story about forgiveness, about a ship that braved storms to find safe harbor. Her voice was soft and steady. Isaiah and Elijah listened intently, their eyes shining, and Amara knew that while the road ahead wouldn't be easy, they were walking it together as a family. Ethan looked at Amara and saw a rare smile on her lips. A sense of joy washed over him, one he had never truly known. He remembered their days in Atlanta, their dreams of a future together, and realized that even after 8 lost years, he still had a chance to rebuild. He whispered, Amara, I won't let you down. She didn't answer aloud, but gently squeezed his hand a silent yes. As the ship docked, Amara, Ethan, Isaiah, and Elijah stood by the railing, watching the shoreline appear on the horizon. Other passengers gathered their belongings, preparing to disembark. But the 4 of them stayed still, not wanting to leave this moment behind. Amara took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of the sea, and marveled at how a stormy journey had led them here into a new family, imperfect but full of hope. They stepped off the ship hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future would bring.